Thank you, Ms. Picotto. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Excuse me. My name is Robert Hutchings. I'll be chairing the hearing today. I'm joined in the panel by Ms. Lynn Nesbitt and Mr. Clay Purvis. Representing the Assessment Department, City of Winnipeg, is Mr. Jeremy Pohl, and our administrative personnel today is Fran Picotto. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted to the hearing. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. Today, we will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by this Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with this board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions by the applicant and the panel members, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questioning by the assessor and the panel members. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions based on the evidence presented here today. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, please affirm the assessor and the applicant from item number 1, 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100.
I'm just going to place Mr. Neufeld in the waiting room for now.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Pohl.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Advocate, please state your full name.
And Peters.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. First item on the dock is item number 1, file number 24-4516, BA roll number BA 54359, pardon me. Address is 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100, and we're dealing with a 2025 business assessment appeal. Mr. Pohl, when you are ready, please. 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100.
Sure. The roll year is 2025, obviously, and again, you've already went over it. Unit 100, 177 Lombard, and the business ID number is 54359. It is Salisbury House. They occupy that unit. We have a total annual rental value of 50,460. The area is 3,500 square feet, and we have a total ARV per square foot of $14.42 a square foot. I reviewed the I&E. I've attached it. It is not owner occupied. It's on the next page over. They're reportedly paying $14.86 a square foot. If you look to the right, the owner does check off net, but then also checks off all of the gross. This is clearly an error. If this worked out to be a gross rent, we'd be looking at a $6 rent or so, or around $7 rent, around there. So clearly it's not a gross rent. But I can let the owner speak to that, or the business owner speak to that. It does appear to be a $14.86 rent. Net rent, I should say. So next page over, page 3. It's in Lombard. I've been in this building, not for the hearing today for an inspection purpose, but for just as a patron. It's a good location. The Highlight Salisbury House breakfast is a full acknowledgement on that. But when we go through it, it is a very nice restaurant, good location, but when we go through the pictures, it's 3,500 square feet. So it's not, some of the market downtown is more kiosk related, 300 square feet, 500 square feet, under 1,000 square feet. Those aren't the market that we would be looking at. We're looking at a full restaurant space. As the pictures show as you go through it, they have kitchen in the back, they have serving staff, and obviously they developed the space to suit the heritage, the building itself. So with that, I do believe they've done a good job with their brand, as well as moving into a building at Kitty Quarter Portage in Maine, to take on the natural characteristics of the building. So I think it's a really nice old school modern blend kind of thing. So as we go through, I'm looking at comparables in the marketplace. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get the same kind of comparable for this property because, quite frankly, you don't have too many 3,500 square foot buildings or CRUs for this kind of older building, I should say, for a restaurant. So what we did, and what I did, was look at the entire downtown marketplace and rationalize out where they should be and where they would fall. So we do have shed comparables. That would obviously be the upper end of the rents. We do have your Brown Social House, Merchant, Tim Hortons, Tavern, Shark Club, Boston Pizza, Marcello, Rudy's Eat and Drink. Those are all unprominent buildings, but it does set the upper end of the range of market. So what we see here, it's not just a couple of rents that I've looked at. I've canvassed the entire marketplace to see what the market performs at in downtown Winnipeg. So what we see for each year, those are the rents that are in place. And then we have a summation for the last column. We also have the total area, median CRU around 6,000 square feet. And then the weighted average and median rents. So approaching the reference date, we're looking at around $25 to $26 approximately. When we look away from the shed, obviously, we look at just your regular downtown eateries, your regular downtown spaces that rent out. We look at 375 Main Street, which is across the street from this property. Pies Restaurant, high-end restaurant, Class A building, not in the shed district. They're around 5,500 square feet, and they're in around $28.50. So we look at 175 Smith, which is more in line with the subject property. There's 4,000 square feet. They're in at $18. The 274 Gary, which was the former Pint, they were paying approximately $30 a square feet for each floor plate was about a little over 4,000. So they had the upper and lower. So they were paying about $30 a square foot. Again, a bit higher. It's more of a destination, similar to the shed, but just not inside the shed. Another one that would be decent enough to look at would be Portage Clay Oven. They're about 5,600 square feet, and they're in at $19.25 a square feet. And when Beachcombers was in the Forks, it's not there anymore. They were in at $29.29 a square foot. And the old Spaghetti Factory, also in the Forks, they're in at $24 a square foot. So when we look at just the regular downtown eateries for your average, weighted average, median, the CRU median CRU size is about 5,500 square feet. We're looking at around the $23 mark, maybe $24 mark. So when we go back to the subject property, we see that they are paying $14.86 a square foot. Signed in 2018, 10-year lease, long-term, obviously, with the tenant improvements in the branding that's in the location. And we see that the model applied $11.71 a square foot. So from the comparables that I can see, as well as the subject property and what they pay, they're underneath by about $3 of contract. The model produced the rent, what I feel is reasonable, given the location. It is an older building. There was a due tenancy take up, but a lot of that was branding. So given the location, I think $11.71 is a fairly conservative rent. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. To the applicant, I'm not sure if you ever appeared before the board before.
No, first time.
Okay, I'll just preface I'm going to ask you to ask questions of the evidence presented by the assessor. After we're finished questioning him by the panel and yourself, you're going to have your opportunity to present your case why you think the assessment is not right. At this time, I would just ask you to question the assessor on the evidence he presented so far.
So this property is on the low end of all of your research, correct?
Yeah, the nature of the building that it is it is what it is. It's 177 Lombard. It was an older space that was renovated to suit your tenancy. But it is not, it's not a shed comp. It's not a higher end comp in the downtown.
On the lower end of the comparables, do those have direct access to the restaurant, or do they have to go into the building to then go into a restaurant?
Which comparable are you speaking to? Sorry.
Any of the comparables on the low end that you see as comparable to this location?
This spaghetti factory, you go into the Forks, obviously, same with Beachcombers. Clay Oven, you have access on the outside. Tim's obviously on the outside. Pint on the outside. Smith as well on the outside. And
Okay.
Highs, you can get in through. You have to go into the actual building and then into the restaurant itself.
Okay, so would it be fair for me to say that this building does not offer the same easy access as most of your comparables? Or plenty of parking available, like the destination at the Forks, that you can park right on the Forks and you'd be having a destination there, or some of the other locations you listed to have their own parking lot?
So I'll just answer the first question, the access. You walk into the lobby of this building and you turn to your right. That's not a barrier in my mind's eye.
Okay.
Okay. As far as the parking, a lot of restaurants downtown don't have parking. As far as pay for parking for downtown, whether it's on the street or on a parkade, that's just the nature of the downtown. Forks does have a fair bit of parking, obviously, as well as street parking for the other comparables. I don't see this as any different from where you are located. There's parkade right across the street. There's open parking spots. There's a parkade behind you on Market. There's ample parking.
Okay.
Anything else, sir?
No, I have no other questions on that end.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nesbitt, any questions of the assessor?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis.
Just a couple. I'm just looking at your rent comps. Looks like you use the shed area, which is sort of that neighborhood around the Canada Life place. And then we've got downtown. Is there a reason why there aren't more comps from the East Exchange district? There's a lot of restaurants.
Size wise is what I was looking for and start date. I'm looking for similar, like you mean exchange, like as far as
I'm thinking like Corrientes or Bluefish, or like there's a lot of restaurants on that side of the exchange.
Yeah, Hermanos I wouldn't bring in because I feel that that would be too large of a space, fairly large space. But there are a few, but I don't believe the startup dates would have lined up with this assessment. So I tried to get a sampling of similar and like property, similar like series that were being leased out, but it's not in totality of the marketplace.
Yeah, just curious because it seems like they would be more similar as far as the sort of some of the structural concerns that come with the older buildings. I mean, and some of these other spaces are also in new buildings too.
Well,
Like Brown
three.
Social House, 311 Portage. There's
No, no.
three.
Let me be clear. I do the maybe I back up here. I've had this study done already for other appeals for at the municipal board level. Um, I'm going for the entire marketplace kind of thing, and I'm seeing where the high is, and then where the outside exchange. So I'm not saying that we should use the shed district comps at all. I'm just they're a gauge to see where it's performing. The RST for downtown is the comps that I'm using. So make no mistake, I'm not saying it should get a $35 rent or a $28 rent.
Okay, just looks like the okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. And I have no questions of the assessor. To the applicant, please bear with us and did you submit a brief to the applicant?
No, I did not.
Okay, so it's just going to be a verbal presentation?
Correct.
Okay. All right, when you are ready, please.
My question to Mr. Paul, and this is the reason we got here, and it's like, and the reason why I actually even got to this point. Some of the points I had was this location in specific had had a vacancy rate very high prior to Salisbury House, and there's a reason for that. It's a particularly hard location for restaurants, given where it is and the access. And my main question to him was from the last assessment at 43,740 to the current assessment of 50,460, there was a 15.36% increase. And there were no changes on the rent. I understand there's different factors he takes into consideration, but there has been no factors on that directly from the property. There was no change in rent. There was no increase on any uh, direct costs there. And sales on that location are just now getting back to what they were pre-COVID. So COVID really affected that location. When I compare inflation on 2023 and 2024, Manitoba was at 3.5% in 2023 and 1.1% in 2024. However, the increase presented by him was at 15.36%. So all I'm asking at this point is a more reasonable increase, preferably more in line with the inflation we have and with the scenario the restaurants are dealing with on that specific part of the exchange.
Mr. Pohl, any response to comparing an old assessment and a new one?
Yeah, I tried to indicate, I realize you're not a tax agent, so we don't build an assessment based on another assessment. We don't compare assessments to whether it be a subject property assessment from a prior cycle or cycles or other comparisons of other similar properties within the same cycle. Every assessment starts fresh and gets reviewed. It's based on factual evidence presented. And in this case here, when I'm looking at your property, you're paying $14.86. It's a 10-year lease, a strong covenant, long-term. Obviously, you put your branding in there. We're looking at a model rent that was generated $11.71, which is 27% below what the contract is. And we can see that the downtown eateries that compete with you in other markets throughout, you're at the lowest end of the low. So from my perspective, your rent is very reasonable. It's a bit under market, but when you look at the subject property itself, yeah, it's an older building. It's an older building off Portage and Main. And if we're going to be predicting what the model, from a model perspective, if we're going to predict what a contract rent is, I think more along $11, $12 rent is more in line. In this case here, you got about $3 or so more than that. So everything when I'm looking at it seems like this assessment is correct and favorable to yourself. So if we're looking at it from the perspective of business sales from a going concern occupying it that was impacted by COVID, sales that took a while to come back or whatever level they are, we don't canvass that from property owners. We don't put that into a metric that we would use to determine what an assessment would be. So with that, I'll leave it up to the board.
Anything else the applicant would like to ask or comment on?
Nope.
Anything else?
To the board.
No, okay. All right, Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant?
No, we don't. Thank you.
Mr. Purvis, any questions? You're on mute, Mr. Purvis. Maybe I'll allow Ms. Nesbitt to ask any questions, Ms. Nesbitt.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Purvis, I'll go ahead also and let you see if you can figure out what's going on there. To the applicant, the assessor stated that 1442 was the lease you had on the property. Is that the net lease? Do you agree with that?
I believe that number is correct.
Okay, thank you.
$14 a square feet.
14, okay. And Mr. Purvis, Mr. Pohl, do you have a question arising?
No, I highlighted it's $14.86, but I also pointed out to the panel that they check net, the property owner checked net, and obviously not the Salisbury representative today. They checked net as well as filled out every single gross cost. So $14 would be reasonable in my mind's eye if that's what he's stating. So
Okay, and he's also confirmed that, I believe. Mr. Purvis, how are you making out there with your audio?
Maybe could we take a short recess?
Yeah, Mr. Purvis, we're going to take a recess until Mr. Purvis can figure out what's going on with his connection. Yes, please, Ms. Fan. Thank you. I'll now call the hearing back to order. Mr. Purvis, you had questions?
I didn't have any questions. I was trying to indicate that I'm good. I'm
Okay. Ms. Nesbitt, did I ask you?
Yes, you did ask me. I have no questions. Thank you.
And I believe I asked you, the applicant, what the actual or the lease was, right? Okay.
Correct.
So, any requirement for summary, Mr. Pohl?
no.
The
Thank you.
applicant requirement for summary? To the applicant?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, sir. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
You'll hear from us as soon as possible, and you can leave if you wish now. That concludes item number 1, file number 24-4516, 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100. Next item on the docket is,
Have a good day.
thank you. Next item on the docket is item number 2, file number 24-4537, BA number 27729. Address is 25 Forks Market Road, Unit L18, and we're dealing with a 2025 business assessment appeal. And would you mind
Yes. First, please state your full name.
Antonio Costa, I go by Tony.
Okay. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you. You may be seated.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Picotto. Welcome, Mr. Costa.
Thank you.
I think you've just watched the process unfold here, so hopefully you got an understanding of how we're going to proceed here.
Yes,
Mr. Pohl, bear with us and let us pull up your brief, please. And when you're ready, Mr. Pohl, 25 Forks Market Road, Unit L18.
Business assessment ID number is 27729. The total annual rental value is $45,120. The area is 7,092 square feet, and the total ARV per square foot, or overall ARV per square foot, is $6.36. This is a bit of an oddball property, I'll be blunt. This is, if you go into the Johnson terminal, I've been through, not for this inspection, but I've been through many times over the years. It is the flea market area in the basement. There's elevator access coming down. You can go down the stairwell to get to it as well. When I looked at this property, I had some difficulty finding comparables at a $3.66 rent because they don't exist. I've done downtown for 20 years. Typically, if I'm looking at storage areas, regardless of what kind of building it's in, you're looking at around, for this reference cycle, around $7. Even back in the past, you're starting around $5 for storage areas or substandard basements. This, I can't bring in any comps that low. That's why there's no comps here. The onus is upon the department to prove. The problem with that is there's nothing here like and similar. This, I believe this space is, from what I understand, reading through the appellant's submittal, or submission, I should say, that this is more of an amenity to the Forks itself. And that makes sense. There really is no, from what I can tell by the lease that's in place or agreement that's in place, that you're not really making any money here. It's mainly here to be amenity for people come on site, that you go through a place like this. It's a draw. It's a draw because of the uniqueness of the Forks and how it's set up. So from that, our model produced a rent of $3.67 a square foot, which is far lower than I can bring market in at, because it just doesn't exist this low. So from that point, we want to have an open discussion on what the rent should be. I believe there's a $600 rent per month in place, but that's also something that's been there for some 30 years, if I'm not mistaken, from what the appellant submitted. But at that point, I'm open to questions and to have a discussion on the nature of the use of this place. So,
Okay. Mr. Pohl, before we proceed, would you mind stating what this particular property is used for? And
it's a Johnson terminal. If you go through the building, the upper floors it's owned by Artist Radio. Go through the upper building, it's office. But in this, as you walk down and into it, it's retail, but it's not really retail. It's more like a flea market kind of feel to it. And you can see from the pictures that the appellant has in their submission. I don't disagree. It is substandard for the Forks, but it is what it is.
is it an antique store / flea market? Would that be fair?
Well, I use the term flea market. It is an antique store, but I use that kind of feel to it, right? Like it's something that is a draw. You take your kids there. If you want to have a cup of coffee, you go through the Forks. It's one of those desirable amenities that you want to go through, right?
Okay.
But it's not necessarily. I wouldn't call it a retail-driven space.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Just needed an overview. That's all. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, all right. Mr. Costa, good afternoon. Any questions of the assessor's evidence presented so far? You'll have your opportunity to present your case soon, but any questions of what he stated, or?
He's pretty much on the ball there. Yeah, it's an antique mall. A lot of people think of it as a flea market or whatever. Basically, how it operates is we rent out the spaces down there to other dealers, and then we sell their items for them. So the vendors are never there, not like as a flea market where the vendor has to be there in his booth and sell every weekend. You know, we're open 364 days a year. So we sell their stuff. So we collect the rent from the space, and then we collect the consignment for all the items that we sell. So we have approximately 25, 26 current vendors right now. And Yes, I am happy to say that we are celebrating our 30th year in business this year. Quite a feat for a small family-run business, having survived a lot of hard economic times and of course a pandemic. Unfortunately, all my competitors were not so lucky. They're pretty much all gone. I think we're the only ones left aside from the Old House Revival Company on Yonge Street. Similar thing, an antique mall, same business concept and everything.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nesbitt, any questions of the assessor?
Mr. Pohl, you indicated that there is a lease in place. Have you seen the lease?
What we conveyed in the appellant's information was it was a $600 lease per month in place now. I think it stepped up from 500. But that's the only information I really have on it.
Okay. Okay, and 360, I think it was 366 as your base ARV is very low by your.
That's what I'm trying to explain. I can't bring in rental rates this low. They don't exist. Like if you have like a $3 or $2 or $4 rent in a downtown office building for a basement, typically it gets redeveloped. No one wants you in there for that. They're not property owners making any money. You'll have foot traffic through. You have all the problems that come with wanting to keep that space up, but not enough economic opportunity for being charged by rent to warrant anyone being in the space. So there's a level of rent here that the model put in place that really I can't, like it's below what I can bring in for comps. So that's why I was trying to explain and rationalize it out for you, why there are no set of comps here. Because for the nature of the use of the space, it just, there isn't any.
No, I appreciate that. It is a unique space for sure.
That would be
familiar with it also.
Yeah, it's a unique space. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pohl. No additional questions.
Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt. Mr. Purvis, any questions of the assessor?
So just for clarification, I think you'd said that the base ARV per square foot, that 366, that was model derived?
Yes. We do have a low parameter on it. And when I looked at it, it was like, that's as low as I've ever really seen. So obviously canvassing the marketplace, I could bring in significantly higher rent for better quality storage spaces, but it wouldn't be in par with what's here. So
because their rent is $600 a month.
I believe it's $600 a month. Yes.
That'd be $7,200 a year.
Yeah.
Which with this square footage works out to basically about $1 a square foot, which is the model. The model won't go that low.
No. And that's why I was trying to get, like, if I'm a property owner and I have a tenant in there for $3 or so, or $1, whatever, around that, I don't want anyone in there. I'll redevelop that space or keep it dark, because the amount of people that are going to come in or do whatever is going to be hindrance. I can't keep up the maintenance of that space on such a low rent, right? Like there's no incentive to me to have someone in there. So, but in this case here, you see that the Johnson Terminal was redeveloped. They have obviously a higher end office space above this, but this exists to be amenity to the Forks, for people to go to the Forks, right? Like it's not really there to generate profit for the property owner for rent. It's there so a desirable feature for the site for people to come to.
Somewhere where there's something to do after you go skating or while you're waiting.
Have a cup of coffee. I've done it for years and years. You have a cup of coffee. I come down the elevator. I walk around with my son. Go up the stairs. You just kind of walk around the site. It's a nice place, like for that amenity, kind of for that feel for what the Forks is. But as far as turning a profit for rent for the usual rental purpose of landlord to tenant, it doesn't exist. Like that's, and that's why you see $600 rent or $500 rent and a model rent of $3 or so. It's obviously a bit different scenario here.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, I note that its property use code is office.
Yeah.
yet it's used, is it considered retail space or?
I was very, it technically is retail, but it would not be a commercial retail space in my mind's eye. Like I said, it's an amenity to the site for the purpose of what the Forks is kind of, the how the Forks is operated. I'm at a loss other than to say, like I said, it was kind of like a flea market or an antique shop. It really is a unique thing that's there.
Yeah, okay. And the stated rent, although we haven't heard that from the property owner, is $600 a month, is that right? Around there?
From what they reported, it stepped up from 500 to 600. I'm not sure as far as the uniqueness of the selling of other people's items and what percentage they take, or if artistry takes a percentage off of that as well. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay, we can find that out from the applicant, I guess. Okay, but you don't put any weight in that declared monthly rental. Would that be fair?
If I have this site and it's in a regular build, if I'm running it like a regular office building, I don't have this in my basement. I have it completely empty. If I'm running the Forks, knowing the nature of the Forks, I want someone there, but I do have to charge something, right? And pretty much that's what you got.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Thank you. Excuse me. Mr. Costa, allow us to get to your brief, please.
Okay.
Now-
So
Mr. Costa, sorry, allow me to find your brief here and now. So we've got how many pages do we have? We've got a bunch of actual photos, okay? I'm just reviewing it quickly. And you have a one-page submission, okay? Okay. When you're ready, Mr. Costa, please.
okay, so yes, the current rent is $600 a month. It was 500 for up to approximately 20 years, and then they had bumped it up to 600. Basically, we've been kind of like grandfathered in because, as he mentioned, the space it's not really feasible for any other business because of the low ceilings. We have exposed electrical conduits everywhere, plumbing, heating vents, makeup units. So if you were to finish the ceilings, you would literally have 7-foot ceilings in certain areas and maybe 9-foot ceilings in other areas. It's all concrete down there. It's concrete walls, concrete floor. We don't have any running water. We don't have a washroom. That's actually just down the hall from the shop. We are dealing on a regular basis with the odd leaks from rusty old plumbing, a lot of leaks and water damage from the old spaghetti factory, which is directly above us. That's been going on for many years, pretty much since they've been there day one. A lot of it is from old plumbing, sometimes employee negligence. Most of the time it's employee negligence. They'll spill water on the floor or they'll let the sink overflow, and then of course it makes its way down into the basement. And we've endured tens of thousands of dollars in damages over the years from leaks and floods. Not to mention their grease trap is also located in our space. It's pretty much in the middle of our area. There's plumbing that comes down, and that has overflowed on a few occasions, causing, again, tens of thousands of dollars in damages, having to be closed for 2-3 days, mopping up grease, water, food particles, putting out the fans to dry everything up, clean up. Meanwhile, they can still operate on a daily basis, and we're the ones who are affected. I am working with the landlord right now to have that removed. Our lease actually has expired as of February 28th of this year. We are in negotiations with Liad, which is the new property owner. Artist REIT sold the building last year. So we have a new building owner, a new landlord. Last communication with them is they are wanting to increase it to $2 a square foot. As Mr. Pohl mentioned, he would.
Mr. Costa, excuse me, sorry. This is all post-reference. We call it post-reference information. It has nothing to do with the current assessment that's set previous to this date. So we're not going to listen to any of this. It's
Okay.
Yeah, so you've stated the physical problems with the property with leaks and everything.
Mhm.
Perhaps we could get to, we've had a chance to review your presentation. Maybe you'd like to go through the photos quickly.
Sure.
And state what you think the assessment should be based on the problems you have.
So the photos is just to give you an idea of what it actually looks like downstairs. So as you can see, it's all concrete walls, concrete floors, all the exposed plumbing, electrical, makeup units. As you can see in one of the photographs, there's Karen, one of my staff. She's close to 6 feet tall, and you can see the clearance between that heating, the makeup unit, and where she's standing. Again, constant leaks all the time, not just in one spot, but in various spots. We deal with mice, bugs. Right now, we're dealing with an infestation of silverfish, which have made their way up to the main floor now, and I think to the second floor. So they're going to be sending an exterminator in about a week's time to handle that.
Okay, from the photos that we see, it's not the most desirable office location, retail office location.
Yes, yeah.
You get that, yeah, okay. And I believe the assessor has addressed it by putting what he considers a very base rent on it. Perhaps you can tell us what you think. Shall we get to the point here? You tell us what you think the assessment should be.
Well, after speaking with the current owners, they are wanting to renegotiate the lease at $2 a square foot.
Okay.
At $2 a square foot, pretty much doubles what my rent is right now, which we're fine with. We can definitely make it work and stuff.
Okay.
I think, at $2, $2.50, but as Mr. Pohl mentioned, it basically covers maybe operating expenses, maybe some hydro, but that's basically it. The antique mall is a draw to the building. It draws people in, but it's because it's a basement. It is what it is. That's why it had remained empty for the first year when they renovated the building. Second floor is retail, plus an office, plus a restaurant on the main floor. Third and fourth is strictly office space. So the only thing that they came up with was to put an antique mall in the basement.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the only fit for them. Most antique malls and shops are usually in old warehouses or old houses and stuff like that. So
Okay.
they can't be in Portage Place or anything like that.
Okay, so I'm just going to summarize for you. I believe you're requesting a rate of $2 a square foot based on the physical condition of the property and the basement location with open.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think we've got a clear picture of what's going on here. Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant?
I don't have any, other than, sorry, maybe I misplaced here. The owner doesn't get any percentage sales of any kind?
No.
Okay, that's the only thing I had questions on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions of the applicant?
I believe my question was asked and answered. I'm good.
Thank you. Ms. Nesbitt.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, Mr. Costa, I think you indicated that this space does not have access to any water.
That's correct. We have no running water in our space.
So for the 7,092 square feet, none of that has access to the water?
No,
What about air conditioning?
there is air conditioning in the building.
Okay,
We have heat, but it's always inconsistent. It's either too hot or it's too cold. No happy medium, unfortunately.
the joy of an old building, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
And
okay.
not to mention, because it is an old building, it has an old smell to it. When they renovated, they treated the beams and the floorboards with some kind of chemical, so that smell still lingers throughout the building. I do have customers who do come down and cannot enter the store because they're very sensitive to the smell, and they end up just leaving because it's just overwhelming for them. But that's like a 1%. So 1% thing, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Costa.
Thank you. Mr. Costa, I don't want to get into your private business here, but just to confirm, I think you stated that you rent out space to individual vendors and then you kind of maintain the space and deal with the sales of their items. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah, that's the business model there.
Okay, is that like how a flea market works, I guess, kind of?
Basically same thing, same kind of concept, but at a flea market, the vendors are actually there selling their stuff, so the owner does not take a fee or anything or a percentage.
Okay. And in reference to the physical problems with the leaking and that, is it the responsibility of the owner of the building to repair those things for you?
It is.
Okay.
It is, yeah. When it was basically leased to us, it was basically as is, where is condition. So,
Okay. But if there's a leak from upstairs and that kind of thing, they're responsible for the cost of repairing it, maintaining it?
the landlord will look into it, you know. A lot of times if they're just if it's a one-off leak or whatever, you know, we got pails and buckets everywhere. We just put them underneath there, deal with it, and if it's a pipe that's obviously rusted out or rotted out, the landlord looks after it and stuff. So yeah.
Okay. And all your utilities are included in that, we'll call it the 600.
Yeah, we don't pay any utilities down there. It was either factored in, maybe what we were paying for rent was basically just covering maybe some hydro and some other operating costs at the time, but the new company feels that it's like Mr. Pohl said, not making money. It costs money to maintain that space, and they feel that what they're asking for right now is around the $2 mark.
Okay, and you are responsible for the business tax, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's all my questions. Excuse me, Mr. Pohl, any requirement for summary?
No, thank you.
Mr. Costa, anything else to add?
No, I think I covered everything. I was here 2 years ago to appeal the 2023 assessment. It was basically pretty much at the same amount, just over 45,000. And I won my case, and they dropped it back down to the 21,600, which is still higher than what we are paying, but I feel that that's a fair number. You know, it's reasonable. I think it's reasonable, you know, so.
Okay, thanks for that information. Thank you. Okay. That concludes item number 2, file number 24-4537, 25 Forks Market Road, Unit L18. Thank you, Mr. Costa, for appearing, and you can leave now, and we'll let you know as soon as possible what we decide, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Okay, Ms. Picotto. I guess we're gonna have Mr. Neufeld up next.
Yeah. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Ayrton Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Neufeld. Thank you, Ms. Pico. First item in the docket, now we're getting a feedback, right? Yeah. Next item on the docket, item number 3, file number 24-5124, BA roll number BA-2856. Address is 605 Deneuve Street, Unit 200, and we're dealing with a 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Pohl.
Sure. Business assessment roll number is 2856. The total annual rental value is $90,660. The total ARV is, the total area is 5,462 square feet, and overall ARV is $16.60. The space is below. We have a base rent of $13.90. It is owner occupied. Still the second floor. If we go to the next page, I was involved with the realty appeal. So here's the order that we have. It was a reduction. The reduction, however, did not indicate what rental rate that they were using, or if they changed the vacancy, or whatever the sake. Trying to work my way back. The reduction wasn't unreasonable. As far as the board order, I'm trying to work my way back to whatever rent that would have been in place, but I really can't get to it. But I did bring in the exact comparables and information that was relied upon by ourselves at the hearing. So on the next page, as we see, this is excerpts from my realty brief. So page 1 shows the cover page to my realty brief. Page 3 shows the income expense questionnaires. It is owner occupied on the second floor, so there's no issue there. There's no rent. Page 5 shows the location of the property. It's on this Mirons, about a block up from the corner of Provenche. My two comparables were on more than two comparables, but the two main buildings was 383 Provenche and 131 Provenche. And on the next page is the comparables from each unit, or each unit in those comparables. So basically, 383 Provenche is a little less than the subject property. 131 Provenche is a little better than the subject property. And if you look at the rental rates that are in place, the weighted averages are $12.24 and then $14.69. So the rent that we had applied, or the model-driven rent that was applied, was $13.90. So it dovetails right where you think it would be for the marketplace. And then the subject property itself is performing at what's performing at. So with that, I know the appellant's going to seek for a reduction in rent. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with the reduction that was at the realty side of it, but it wasn't something that I would look away from. I'm trying to review it and trying to come to what the board decided to consider applying it, but I can't get my way back there because there's too many variables. So with that, I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
No, thank you. It's okay.
Okay. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Nesbitt?
No, other than just to confirm, Mr. Pohl, that there was an adjusted NOI, but you weren't able to isolate that there was a reduction in rent just based on all the various factors involved. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
It's not that I necessarily, you come to appeal and we think it's this, so the agents think it's that. The decision, this wasn't a decision that was appealed to the municipal board. I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to reverse the number to see what they came Up to, and I can't do, there's too many variables here, so I'll leave it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Poole. No additional questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt. That was my question too, so. Oh, boy, how many parameters, right? All right. Mr. Neufeld, did you submit a brief, Mr. Neufeld?
No, I didn't. You know, I figured these were all flow throughs. This is my bad. I should have probably submitted at least an estimate of the work up here. I mean, we have all the information, so we can talk about it. And I honestly think I'm just going to leave it to the panel's discretion. And I don't think we're going to be too bothered based on what they interpret it as. It's us, you know, the difference that it could be is not huge. I think they would reduce the NOI by 11%. I will state that well, yeah, see, now this is what I should have submitted. But our realty brief, we have this as 5,000 square feet. It doesn't look like they changed the area. I think it's a bit of a common area argument. Yeah, there's nothing showing that they did. But in our realty brief, we were at $5,012 for this unit. And then they did reduce the NOI, and you know, they might have reduced it all in the basement. I don't think the parameters would make a huge difference. They're generally, we find, going with most of the parameters, and we're only a biggest difference between non-recoverables, and that's usually stated. Our shortfalls are almost identical, and I'm sorry again that I'm not showing you this, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. I guess realistically, the decision the panel would have to be making is whether or not they think they went to R12 or they changed the basement rate. And I won't argue with whatever you think is fair, to be quite honest, because it's guesswork.
Okay, no, I'm gonna ask you right now to clarify. How's that so you're saying that your original brief had submitted a rate of $12 a square foot as opposed to $13.86?
Correct.
And a different cap rate, for instance?
Yeah, we were at 8, but the panel went to 715, which is explicit. Sorry, if you go to the assessor's second page,
Yeah,
the NOI was 158, 167. That's stated clearly.
okay,
I think Jeremy's point that it could have been the parameters it's a fair question. We don't know. I don't suspect it was. I think it was either an adjustment on all the rents, and if you say outright that it wasn't, then it was an adjustment in the basement. So we were at $4. So I wouldn't think it would be unreasonable to say that all this rent was adjusted in the basement. I will state that, but it was reduced by 11%. So I leave it to the panel, really.
okay, I'll ask you one more question before we proceed. I'll get it clear. What are you suggesting excuse me, I think you're suggesting the square footage should be reduced?
Well, they didn't reduce it in the realty, so
Right.
I'm not here presenting that argument.
But the rate should be reduced down to $12 a square foot? Is that what you're asking?
I think that would be what we're asking. But if the panel found, again, we requested $4 for the basement, and the city's at. They're just being transparent as much. The city's at 1130. You can see that on his page. 8. I wouldn't be surprised if all the adjustment was in the basement. So we did request 12 at that hearing. I will request 12 today. But I think that's what the panel decides between whether or not they went to 12 or move to the basement. I don't think I can really argue against, because would be reasonable that they did just do the basement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Poole, any questions?
No, you're kind of running up against the same issue I had. There was multiple points in the hearing, and I don't know exactly how the NOI was came to. So really, I can't ask any questions. Other than generally, I think we're in agreement that there was a reduction. We just can't work our way back to what the actual unit for the 5,462 square feet on the second floor was, if it was reduced at all. Might that be about fair?
Okay. Ms. Nesbitt, any questions?
Yeah,
Question,
it's a hard one to go over this one.
no questions, thank you.
Mr. Purvis, any applicant?
No, I have no questions.
It's all clear as mud, right? Okay, and I don't think I have any questions. I think Mr. Neufeld answered them as best he can, but yeah, okay, all right. Mr. Pohl, any requirement for summary?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neufeld. That concludes it. Item number 3, 605 Demuro Street. Okay, next item on the docket is item number 4677 Portage Avenue. BA file number 24-25, pardon me, 24-50. BA roll number B 19748, and we're dealing with a 2025 business assessment appeal, address 677 Portage Avenue. Mr. Poole, allow us to get to your brief, please.
Thank you for reading all that in. That saves me time.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so the total annual rental value is 88,320. The total area we have is 6,494 square feet, and we have a total ARV of $13.60 a square foot. The rental rates that we have applied are as such at $13.76, $5.05, and $10.34 for the base rents on page 1. It is owner occupied. It's been Spectrum Health for far back as I can ever remember. So it's been a number of decades. So if we go over to the order, and again, I'm trying to reverse engineer what the panel came up with. I don't think this is an unreasonable order. So I am trying to work my way back from the NOI, but it was an adjusted NOI of $58,781. I don't know what rates were applied to what. If I believe in hearing Mr. Neufeld made a argument to change of area for a mezz area, or should be considered. I don't know what weight the board put to what, but this was the order that came from it. So if we look at the next page over, that's the cover page for my realty brief. We look on page 2, that's where it's located. The 2 of the brief, I should say, 4 of this brief. On page 3 shows the location. Again, Spectrum Health, there's a bit of parking, not for patients. It would be just for their work staff, obviously, with a little bit of parking that we do have there. On the next page over, gives you a better idea of the rents. On page 5, we have $13.60 applied to 4,100 and 59 square feet. That's the main area. The basement leasable area is 2,000 square feet. That's the 505. The storage mezz for 335 square feet. That's $10.38. And then again, for the basement substandard, 2159 square feet, $2.74. And then again, another mezz area, so 595 square feet at $9.82. So you see, this was kind of a bit of how do you come up with the rent? And from what my understanding was, this was a former bank, an older bank that was converted over to this purpose for medical use. So that's where I guess you would say all the different areas come from, just simply from how it was. My comparables are on the next page over, on page 7. You can see that the weighted average works out to be about $12.46, and that's going from some lower end rental properties. They're not the higher end, obviously, OFM type properties, but this would be your marketplace that you would compare. Obviously, it's OFM now. It's not a bank. So with that, we run into the same dilemma as we had the last appeal. I trying to work my way back from realty order and apply what I can, but I really can't go on it. So I'll leave it to the board's hands and I'll open the questions.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the professor?
No, yeah, just quickly, if you could work this out, there would be a recommendation. Is that fair to say? It's an issue of not
Yeah,
being
from my
using
understanding. Yeah, no, precisely. Like I said, like I review every order. I mean, not particularly like an order or not, or think it's good order, or think it's great order, and want the rationale from it. And that's what I'm trying to do here. But again, there was a number of variables here for this appeal. Area differences. I can't go from an NOI and work my way backwards. There's just not enough information needed to do that. But I am open, obviously, up to a somewhat reduction in rent because that's what appeared the board applied. So
anything else, Mr. Neufeld?
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
Just to confirm, these numbers were model driven,
yes, they were.
and those comps are
Those are OFM, lower end OFM comparables.
Okay.
Like indicated, so basically office medical, but not at the higher end of the range. There is some pretty high end office medical, obviously, in the city and throughout this throughout the city. Those aren't one of them. None of them are one of them. So,
Okay, so that's the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nesbitt,
No questions, thank you.
thank you. Mr. Pohl, I'm looking at your EA brief and you are now at 6,498 square feet in total.
yeah,
And the blended rate you're using is $12.46.
correct.
Okay. And then on your realty roof that you submitted, you were at 9,248 square feet. So there's been a revision or correction of the square footage, is that right?
Well, my understanding is the basement area had some contentious issues on it, and the basement area was about 2,000 square feet with another 2159. So without inspecting the property, I can't confirm how much was occupied or whatnot, but that was one of the issues that came up in the realty. So
Okay. But right now you've, I'll call it corrected the square footage, revised the.
I probably go that far. I'm not sure if that should be in there or shouldn't be in there. But
Okay.
having said that, we do have 2,000 at $5.05. So I'm not sure.
But the blended rate is 12.46, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. That's my only question. Mr. Neufeld, you haven't provided us with a brief, so how would you start?
Yeah, again, apologies. I think I figured this would be a little bit more straightforward and we have just an order and looking at it because I saw that there was the change and I I think I agree with Jeremy at this point. It is impossible to get this exactly right. Um, I should have at least submitted my estimate, and that's my apologies. The other three I'm confirming if it helps. So it wasn't a full breakdown of the day, but I will say our realty area matches the assessor's full area on business tax. So if
Okay.
you go to his page six,
Yeah.
his work up there, we
Yeah.
don't submit that substandard basement or that storage mezzanine, and this isn't here on the business tax either. So when you're trying to backwards calculate his 58,000 NOI, that amount would come as well. Well, if the decision went that they took out that area, then the 58 plus costs would be normal. But if they kept the area in, then this business tax assessment would be even lower because there's an area that they're not being assessed for by the business tax. And I think that's common because if it is being assessed by realty but not business, often it can just be because it's personal storage or that kind of thing. And I won't get into that, but we still felt that that wasn't rentable in the first place. So it is possible that they just took out that area, in which case they'd be matching ours. for all assessments. In that case, I think the number I provided to Jeremy with just again, it's not perfect because you're looking at vacancy and all that, but I just added the order and costs. It's and again, I should have done a little bit more digging to get a number, but 76306 was the order value cost, and I think that's reasonable. The only issue then, you are ignoring some costs. They're minimal. I mean, you're looking at the NOI rents instead of the potential rents. But again, minimal. But then on the other hand, we don't know if the panel left that area in. So if they left the substandard basement and the storage mezzanine in, then that would be even lower. So I kind of just think if I think would be reasonable to just split the difference of opinion and go the order value in the page 2, which Jeremy has highlighted, as costs, and it's, there's a chance that we're both wrong, and there's a chance it's higher, there's a chance it's lower. It's somewhat inconsequential, like it's not a huge amount, so I think that's with limited information, a reasonable way to look at this. And that number again, 76306 rounded, however.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld. We're looking to agree with the 6,498 square feet, right?
Yes.
And what rate, assessor's at 1246 a square foot. What do you think the rate should be? I'll be blunt here.
Sure.
For clarification. Or can neither of you figure out where, sorry.
Well, I mean, you want our opinion of our realty brief, or do you want what we think the order went to?
I know.
They're kind of different questions. I think if we're looking at,
Well, maybe I'll allow you on that, and I'll ask Mr. Pohl. No, well, you're gonna figure it out, I guess. Sorry, you go ahead.
yeah, I think with lack of better information, we blend it at 905. And that includes basement, of course, so it's not, and then it's the average of what the realty was too with that area. They were at 893. So I think that satisfies the double checks. Then the question being if the area was left in, it would be even lower. And if we are to calculate costs, it's a touch higher, but I think 905 for
Okay,
I don't know what you would call it.
all right, thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Just generally speaking, I did to the board and to obviously the agent. I did recommend that the property be reviewed. We did have it as an office space. It has been an office space as far back as I can ever remember driving by. So I think this is just the one that we'll wait to see whatever you order. And then we'll kind of move forward with just a site inspection to ensure the areas are right next.
Okay. All right. Mr. Purvis, any questions of the applicant?
I don't have any questions for the applicant.
Ms. Nesbitt.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, do you agree with the 6,498 square feet?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And you're requesting a rental rate of $9.05. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay. Mr. Pohl, any requirement for summary?
No.
Mr. Neufeld?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes 7 Portage Avenue. All right. Next item on the docket is item number 5. Address 330 St. Mary's Avenue, file number 24-5185, roll number 43518. Address 330 St. Mary's Avenue, we're dealing with a 2025 BA assessment. Mr. Pohl, bear with us 1 second, please.
No problem.
Okay, all right. Here, get to Mr. Paul, when you're ready, please.
The total annual rental value is $80,760. The subject property itself is a parkade, the parkade in 330 St. Mary's for 65 stalls. We have $103.50 a stall, which is our standard parameter, which produces the annual rental value. So pretty simple metric. Next page over, he's just going again 330 St. Mary's to get an idea. It's right across from City Place and on the skywalk, and underneath it is underground parkade, and that's the one we're dealing with today. So on the next page over, we see that the order indicated that it was based on the net operating for the realty side, anyways, was the decision was based on the net operating income presented by the assessment department, which includes the parking. So they confirm the parking rates, obviously. Excuse me. And the parking comparables are below. So I also brought in subject properties income statement, just highlighting the parking that's in place. If there's any questions that needed on that, as well as costs. So with that, I feel the board's already confirmed it. I think it's reasonable, just the standard parameter. I reviewed this property in full a number of years ago for municipal board order, and I've been dealing with this one. The general parking on this property is very well-performing parkade, given the largeness of the building on top. It's a big building, and it only has 65 stalls, so it does perform quite well. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nesbitt, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Purvis?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please.
No, we're the panel confirmed this area or this rental rate, so we're okay with that. I do just want to point out the parking revenue that I think is highlighted in this. I just want to, that's 3 different roles as well, so it's not $65 making $500,000.
No. Sorry, I don't want to speak.
No, that's okay. I know, and you didn't say that. I just, the statement could be a little hard to just to let you know that we're not appealing properties that are making $500,000 and 65 parking lots before knowing it's there's 300 stalls in that. So, but yeah, we're requesting confirmation. Thank you.
Okay, requesting confirmation. Okay, Mr. Paul, any questions?
No, other than I'll confirm that with Ayrton. Obviously, it was 2 surface parking lots and 2 underground parkades. Maybe I glossed over that, and I shouldn't have. I'm not doing. It's not. I'm not doing the best with the 6. So yeah, I wasn't implying that this had an outrageous rent of 55 stalls. They reported as one economic unit for the building behind, as well as the 2 surface parking lots. So.
No, and I wasn't implying that you were implying it. I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Just in case the panel saw that, went, what's going on? You know, I think that's
it's a lot of money to seemingly be in one spot. So
great. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Nesbitt, pardon me.
No questions, thank
And I have
you.
no questions either. That concludes item number, excuse me, under item number 5, 330 St. Mary's Avenue, St. Mary. And next item on the docket is item number 6, file number 24-5143, BA number 25644. Address is 330 St. Mary Avenue, Unit 600. Okay. And we're dealing with a 25 BA assessment. Mr. Poole, allow me to get to your brief, please.
I did get confirmation from Mr. Neufeld that the next 2 properties under appeal will be asked to be confirmed, because if that's the case, I can streamline this.
yes, that's correct. We'll be requesting confirmation.
Okay.
Okay.
When you're Poole.
The annual rental value is $232,020. The total area is 13,374 square feet. The total ARV applied is $17.35. This space is for Collier's new couple of years now, but their new location within the building. They moved from Broadway to here. When I reviewed the property, I do all the OFB studies. There's an OFB study attached to this, as well as the A-class properties. But given to this subject property, we have a $13.40 base ARV. That's not a reflection of the improvements that are there now. We simply haven't had a chance to update this floor. So the rental rate that's $13.40 is significantly lower than what's on contract. And you see what's on contract is below, highlighted in yellow for you. So it started out at 17 and went to 18. Having said that, pictures are there if you need to review. And then there's an OFB study attached if you want to go through it with the subject property. But given the fact that they're asking for it to be confirmed, and I'm not asking for an increase or anything like that today, we're in agreement that it should be confirmed, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Pohl, can you tell us what the roll is showing, please, what you're presenting? You've got a total AR, and then you've got a subject in with another line in there, so.
Sorry, did I not say $232,020?
I'm looking at total annual rental value is $232,020. Is that what the roll showed?
Yeah, $232,20.
Okay, and sorry, I might as well ask it, what is the next line? Subject. And then there's a whole new line of valuation coming up at $215,340.
Bear with me here.
Which one is in the roll that were you asking
It would
to?
be the 232.20, which would be on the roll. Let me check the applicants.
Sorry, Mr. Hutchings, where are you looking? What page?
Page 1
Oh,
with details.
right in there.
And we've got total annual rental value, 232,020.
232.20 is what was on the roll. I just checked.
That's what you're presenting?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I didn't catch that. I guess there must have been a change somewhere at 215. I know I caught it now, but no, that's not what I'm indicating it should be at. You got me, other than I'm just kind of going through it quick. Just bear with me.
Okay.
No, the area is all right. It is a live roll. I don't see. I'm at a loss. I'm not sure why it was 250. I'm not sure why it was 215,340 when it shouldn't have been. Other than perhaps there might have been a bit of rental area changed, but that wouldn't make sense because anyone who would have reviewed it would have increased the condition on the property given the renovation of it, right? So please use the 232.20 as that's what we agreed to be confirmed on. I'm not looking to get that reduction. I apologize for that. I'll have to look at this one to get back to this. I'm not sure why it came.
So 232, that top line.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I figured it's confusing. Yeah, okay.
No, good catch. I missed that. I apologize.
Hey, all right. And Mr. Neufeld looks confused. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can pull it up, but the realty roll isn't the realty workup isn't in this one, is it?
You know what,
I just
Mr.
want to know.
Miss Nevitt, do you have any questions on the assessor?
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Well, I am just trying to do the math, and the math in the calculations do add up to 215. So I'm just trying to work that through and confirm that. So I appreciate there's a ARV of 232, but if the math adds to 215, then that's more confusing to me.
No, I what I'm trying to explain is like when we're looking at the 13,374 square feet, like I'm looking for an error on myself, right? Like quickly, right? What we have reported is 13,374. And that's what the area is. So the only difference for this could be that the base area per square foot, the base rent is a little lower than perhaps what was done when the roll was released. I don't have an explanation as to why. Other than like I can go through the study and show whether it be contract be at $17 or $18 or what the rental rate for the subject property is on the market. I can go through the whole thing. But I don't think that little bit of nominal change of rent would really influence my decision to keep it at $232,020, given that, you know, under contract it's $17 to $18 stepping up. And if you want to get into the marketplace, it's hovering around 17. So for the subject property. But I don't know why the number isn't adding up here.
Okay, you can understand our predicament. You're
Oh,
presenting
no, I get it.
32,000 at 1377 Paradise matches. And yet your calculation line comes in 15,000 less.
Yeah, and the area, as far as the occupancy costs are, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I apologize for that. I didn't catch it.
Okay. Ms. Nesbitt, any follow-up there?
No, other than it does create some confusion in my mind.
Yeah.
You need me to go over the study if you want market evidence, or are you comfortable reviewing? It would take me like a minute.
Well, the base ARV amount you have is 1340 in your calculation, so the numbers are right. So you're basically saying that's a wrong number, right?
No, what I'm saying on roll, what we released to the taxpayer was $232.20. So the only parameter that could change here that would potentially, if someone made a mistake in the office or something happened in model, would be the area would be somewhat less, and it's not. We can confirm that on the roll. So the only parameter that could change would be the base ARV rate, which would be the 1340. Must have been a little bit higher, not much, but and that's where I was gonna. If you needed evidence based on what the rental rate should be for the base rent, I can go through that. But given that it's at $17, stepping up to 18, I think it's pretty indicative. If you go through the quality of the space. I haven't inspected it for appeal purposes, but I have been there, obviously, having briefs and exchanging briefs. It is a very fine space. They have a very good write-up for both the architectural group as well as Colliers themselves. And that's why when I was explaining the $13.40, why it's lower than what I feel it should be, simply because this CRU has this floor plate hasn't been reviewed in-house yet to account for the renovation work that has been done. So that would explain the discrepancy between what the model was at around 1340 and if it must have been a little bit higher than that versus what the subject property is performing at as far as the comparables in the properties and the actual floor plate itself, what's under contract. So
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Ms. Nesbitt, any other questions we can discuss?
No other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Purvis.
I'll hopefully sort out my confusion when we deliberate.
Okay. Yeah. You've got that confused look. Okay, Mr. Pohl. The roll says 232,020.
Yes.
Your workup, which am I in error in saying should support, is not matching.
No, it doesn't. It's off.
And you can't explain why.
Well, that's why I tried to explain, like, there's only two things that could be off. Either the area itself, and obviously we review areas when we come to the hearing, and clearly I have the rental area underneath it at 13,374.
Yeah.
So the area is right. The only other thing that could be wrong is the base rent that the model applied. So the $13.40 works out to be $250,340. So clearly that rent base model rent should have been a little bit higher to make it to $232,020. We on same wavelength at that point?
Okay. Just bear with me 1 second, please. Okay, yeah, okay.
And what I'm trying to point out to the panel and to the agent, at around 1350 or around there, right?
Yeah.
The renovation work hasn't been reviewed or accounted for. Otherwise, you would have seen a higher model rent for that particular CRU. It would stand out as a better quality finish, a better quality rent. Obviously, it's at $17.
But that's
$18.
supplementary, possibly, right?
I didn't catch you. Sorry.
That's possibly going to come through as a supplementary assessment.
Well, not necessarily. It might be left for the next assessment roll, right? Might be left to 2027. I don't think we're going to release a supplemental assessment for the realty or for this business assessment deal. That's why I was kind of taking it back. Like, we're okay with the $13.50 or so, and here we probably have an error of maybe 15 cents on that or around there. So I'm still recommending the 230-220 as it still makes sense. It's favorable to the appellant.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, after all that, what have you got for us?
Yeah, can you hear me, eh? I think obviously this went in somehow and was changed, so I think we deal with what's presented in front of us at 215, 340, and that would be my request. I won't make too much of a fuss about it. I will just state that our rent, this is in my office I'm in right now. It is, I mean, we call it a turnkey. They paid for our desks, they paid for our chairs, everything. So the 17 would include a lot of costs that aren't exactly taxable revenue or taxable realty. I think 1340 makes a lot of sense, and it's about average of the bill, saying I thought. Maybe not. But the 1340 for a full floor, I will request it at 250 and 340.
Okay. So that equals 1610 a square foot as opposed to 1740 overall. Okay.
That sounds, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're not requesting a confirmation, you're requesting a verbal request.
Yeah, just based on what's in front of what's the assessor's got in here, though. Not my own.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant?
Not really, other than now that they're asking for a reduction, I kind of need to lean into giving to my full evidence.
No, that's no problem. If you wanted to, I'll leave that to the panel.
I'll go through it quick, just for the panel. I won't take a large amount of time on it. So if we go through page 2, we see just the visual of what 330 St. Mary's is. It's a B prime, borderline A, not an A. It doesn't generate quite as much per square foot to get an A, but there is not a lower A, I should say. But it's a good, very good prime location. So if we look starting on page 4, we'll just go through some pictures. And this is straight off Colliers' website as well as LM Architectural Group's website. They're the ones who did the layout and the design of the property and obviously manage it. A lot of pictures, you can just guide your way through it. Very good workspace. You look at page 12, it gives a write-up from Colliers. Apologize for coughing through this today. Write-up for Colliers, which they indicate who did it, obviously Architectural Group. And then as we go through more, there's more pictures from LM as well. So we have 2 different parties verifying. So you can go through that. It's a high-end finished build space. This is obviously a long-term tenancy. It's not meant to be where we're going to go somewhere in 5 years from now. Very good build out, to one of the best I've seen within the city. So I'll let you read through the write-ups as far as the usability of the space and the functionality of the space, top marks all the way through. If we look at page 21, we see that that is the border revision order. I do not have the realty brief from either parties. I couldn't locate them, but the order itself on page 22 said the decision was based on the net operating income presented by the assessment taxation department. I'm obviously going through the roll, the rent roll, as well as, and I'll get to the study in a moment. If we look at on page 32 of my brief, we see that part of 444 St. Mary's was tenant improvements, and you discount rent. For the board's convenience, I highlighted in yellow, starting on page 35, because I knew this point would come up. Generally, it's full stop. As you can read through the yellow highlighting, it's the argument condensed down to what was presented. The blue highlighting is what the board found, and I'll just read it to you now. The board remains consistent in its findings that the matter on this matter and chooses to use the same wording found in many previous decisions. So there was a long-term case law that indicated we don't use tenant inducements, leasing incentives, a number of things. It was challenged by Altus, it was defended by myself, and the board continued on with what the case law indicated. They didn't make a shift here. They basically used the exact same wordings found in multiple orders over the years. So I'll read that now. The board reiterates its longstanding position that tenant improvements, the build out that we see here today, leasing commissions and leasing incentives are not expenses which may be used to reduce the income for the purposes of calculating market value. So when you look at the $18 and $17 that's under contract for the subject property here today, that's what we would be using. There's no reduction that would be warranted. So
Okay.
if we go over to, and I'll do it quickly, if we go over to the marketplace study, I will go through this very quickly. It's a good read. You can read it if you want to. It pretty much answers everything I could say as far as the marketplace. I've done it in totality myself, as well as the OFA study that sisters this one, and it answers everything I could possibly think a panel could ask for, not only for this level of board, but for a municipal board level appeal. So at tribunal for the board revision, you have a full municipal board look every single cycle now moving forward of how we're going to defend property. So getting to the marketplace on page 4 for the 2022 year, we see that the weighted average is $15.46 per net for the entire marketplace for OPs. Stabilized, and I stabilized the last 3 years. Typically at the municipal board, I do it here as well. We have $14.96. So we're around $15 comfortably. If we look, that's right on average. A better performing property would be somewhat better than that. Lower performing V would be somewhat less than that. And that's on the bell curve below. It gives the
We are familiar with this.
right. So I'll get to the other one. If you look at page 5, 330 St. Mary's, you could look up the market indicator for the last 8 years, including the last 3 years, and stabilized with 20 CRUs leasing up, stabilized there at $16.74. And of course, within that is Colliers, which leased up with their paying. So when we're seeing a $13.40, or there was an error and it should have been $13.40 and a bit more than that, I don't see that as a reason to reduce it. We have that released on roll. That's the number that we have released on roll. I'm trying to define what the rental rate would be, and if taken into account the physical superior nature of the CRU that is now versus where it was prior. Obviously, we had a lower rent on it.
Okay.
It would be greater. So with that, I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you.
I know it's a big study. I didn't want to turn it into a 3-hour thing, so I know it takes a little bit. With that, I'm open to questions on that material.
All right. Uh, Mr. Newfeld, requirement for questioning on that, or we're just gonna leave it?
Questioning, no, that's fine. I'll leave it. I'll make a statement afterwards.
Thank you.
Explanation.
I've lost where we are. Okay. Um, so we were questioning Mr. Newfeld. I think we already did. And Mr. Pohl wanted to present further information to support his position. Am I right? Okay. So, pardon me, Ms. Nesbitt, any questions of the assessor on that information presented?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Purvis.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, and I have no questions either. Okay. Mr. Pohl, requirement for summary?
Nope. Other than the small error that was determined here today, obviously was an error. And most likely in the base rate, I don't feel it should influence a reduction from the original value, given the fact that the market information we provided shows it should be considerably over what the base rate is, given the condition of the property and its renovated state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newfeld.
Thank you. Just quickly, amount of things we got in front of us here. The panel did confirm the rent to the realty. That is true. The rent is higher. Yeah, as I mentioned, turnkey, there's a lot of other things in there, but we're also a business partner with the owner. Our signs are on the window. Our signs are at the top of the building. We basically secured a contract with them, and I don't have that for you to review, but we secured their leasing, and we work on their property taxes. That came with the sign up for the 10 years. So, you could argue that's not quite arm's length. I'll leave that with you. I don't really think it's a major difference, but what we're looking at is the city did present 1340. It may have been an error, and I understand that, and that's fair, but it's what we have to go off here. So I think that's how it should be decided, and I will leave the panel with that. So I am requesting 250 and 340. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes 330 St. Mary's Avenue, unit number 600. That was item number 6. Last item on the docket, item number 7, 240 Graham Avenue. Mr. Pohl, allow us to get to that, please. Okay, Mr. Pohl, when you're ready, please.
And I'll streamline this, given that it sounded like it was going to be confirmed as well. So the 2025 year for 240 Graham, and the business roll number is 50268. Owners are Investors Group Investment Management. This is the parkade. There's 99 stalls. It's heated. The annual rental value is 134,940. And we have our model parameters put on it at 104 and 117. So with that, it produces an ARV of 134,940. Our comparables are below on page 3. On page 2 shows the property. It's the Cargill building. So parking, as you can see, it's embedded within the rent on many CRUs. And with that, I'm just looking here, they don't report an actual, that I found anyways, they don't report an actual stall rate. They just simply embed it within the lease. So with that, I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newfeld, any questions, comments?
No questions, comments. You want them now, or do we want to ask questions first?
Pardon me?
I just want to state why we're confirming and everything, but if you're asking questions, I can wait and call that an argument, or?
No, you just make, are you verbally requesting a confirmation?
Yes, I am. Jonathan Spacek and I worked out this as a 15-1, and I confirmed with him that he did not change the, so that would be why we're not.
Okay.
It's a massive cut, but he kept parking the same, and I will be happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions of the assessor?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Nesbitt?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions either. And Mr. Mr. Neufeld has presented his verbal confirmation request and entered knowing that confirmation. Okay. Mr. Pohl, any requirement for summary?
No, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Concludes item number 7, 240 Grove Avenue, and we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you both for appearing as soon as possible.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.